Hello, kia ora, welcome. So this is day one of the summit that I was running, that I am running, called the Miscarriage Summit. And the reason that I just stumbled over the title of it is because I was speaking to Adrianne, who I'm going to introduce to you in just a moment, and I had a little disconnect with running this event in the first place. Just when I was preparing for it and getting ready for it, and it it came up that just something slightly different needed to come through than what was originally planned. And so we're going to speak about that really soon. But I just felt a little bit strange calling it the title that I had named it. And the reason that you are watching this in the first place was the Miscarriage Summit. But it just feels like it's a lot more than that. It feels like it has now grown into really helping empower you in so many ways. And whether it's having been through a miscarriage, some kind of pregnancy loss, or anything, any other kind of trauma, especially grief. I think we're going to talk a lot about grief today. Then this is really here to nourish you in so many ways and take care of you on an emotional level and show you how, when we work on an emotional level, it can just transform things so quickly and in such a profound way. And not just the event that you're working on, it's also going to transform so many other things that resonate at that same frequency, that feel at that same energy, that same emotional charge. So thank you for watching. And I want to start off by introducing my co-presenter for today, and it's Adrianne Carter. And Adrianne is an amazing coach and healer. She also does some incredible work with understanding body language and different facial expressions. And she uses this for good and to empower people and to help people communicate better and to create better connections with people. And she just does awesome things. And her and I are in a group together once a week. We meet as a mastermind of healers and coaches to come together to help us move through our own stuff. So you've got to be doing that the whole time when you work in this kind of profession. So over to you, Adrianne. Thank you for joining.
Thank you very much. Yes, it was an interesting conversation we had. My last night, your yesterday morning, your this morning. Sorry, the time. I'm in the UK, just in case anyone thinks that's a really weird New Zealand accent. I'm based in the UK. I'm delighted to be on this call because it's powerful work that you do, Penny, and bringing it to help other women is really super insightful for them.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And I'm just really grateful that you're here, and it's 7 a.m. in the UK. And so thank you so much for being here. This is very special to have you here.
Sure.
So I want to just start off by talking about why I wanted you to join me on this session today. And I knew that you had a miscarriage a long time ago. And also there was just something going, get Adrianne. Adrianne needs to be here on this call. And so when I approached you about it initially, do you want to just talk about how you felt about that?
Yeah. So when you started talking about it and asked me to be part of it, I was very uncertain about it because I hadn't dealt with my own stuff around my own miscarriage. And it was 31 years ago. So a long time ago, and that's a long time to be carrying that emotional pain that I hadn't acknowledged. At the time, do you want me to talk about my experience now, or do you want me to save that for a little bit?
Yeah, go for it. Let's go for it now.
Yeah. So at the time I had my miscarriage, it was with my first baby. I'd been married to my husband, my first husband, probably about 2 years. And I really wanted to have a baby, really wanted a baby. I was young, I was 22. I really wanted a baby. And I got pregnant. And at 9 weeks, I miscarried. And it was never really talked about. I don't remember having a proper conversation with anybody about it. The only person who was really supportive and really kind to me was my step grandmother. And she was lovely. She was lovely anyway, but she was really lovely to me. She was the only person who acknowledged this experience I'd had. The only person in all of my family, all of my friends. it just wasn't discussed. And I don't know whether that was because it was 31 years ago, it wasn't discussed. I don't know why, but it wasn't acknowledged. My husband at the time, he never really acknowledged it either. There was no visible grief from him. I never saw any visible grief. There was probably a feeling of relief for him because it was like, oh, I don't think he really at that time wanted children. And it was a very painful experience. So, are you okay with me to share my details
Please,
with what
yeah.
happened?
Yeah, please.
So I went to the toilet. I hadn't felt very well for a few days. I knew I was pregnant. I hadn't felt very well at all for a few days. And one evening went to the toilet and basically lost the baby down the toilet. 22, no idea what to do, and ended up flushing the toilet. And, I was very upset. My husband at the time didn't really know what to do with me. And it was just sort of very much, come on, you've got to crack on. You've got to get on with life. You've got to move on from it. And literally that's how it was. Like, there's no point crying over it. There's no point getting upset over it. And it was very much just get on with your life. And as I said, no one really talked about it apart from that one person, in a brief conversation that a family do was very kind to me. So I carried that for all these years. And I until we started talking about it. And then we were talking about this probably about 6 weeks ago. And all the pain and the emotion and the grief and the sadness all came up. And what was really underneath it for me was this lack of acknowledgement. I hadn't acknowledged this life, this child. I hadn't given. I believe it was a boy. I don't know, but I believe it was a boy. And I hadn't given him a name. I hadn't acknowledged him. So I went through the very painful process that I'm sure you're going to talk about, of healing that grief and I do feel so much better. Not that I was consciously feeling not better carrying that. I don't know how it's affected me over the last 31 years, but I know allowing that grief and that pain to come up has had a very healing effect on me and has had a knock-on effect in other parts of my life, in a good way, in a very good way. But for me, the underpinning of that was about this lack of acknowledgement. Now I've had time to process it in these last 6 weeks. It was that lack of acknowledgement that I was carrying and the guilt around that.
Yeah, and whenever we carry guilt, that impacts us in so many ways. And I know that when we were speaking earlier, you were talking about it was almost like you needed permission to be here or something, or what can you explain that in your own words? I can't remember exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I've always, and I always thought it was a childhood thing, not actually anything to do with the miscarriage. I always thought it was a childhood thing because it was a broken home and lots of other things. I always thought it was a childhood thing, that I kind of never felt my place in the world and I didn't really belong, and almost like sometimes apologizing for even existing. But I'm a professional speaker. It's part of what I do as part of my job. And in the last 6 weeks, I've noticed a big shift, particularly in that area. I own the stage. I've always liked being on the stage and like talking on the stage, but now there's a real sense of I belong here, which I believe comes out, the feedback I've been getting over the last few weeks. I feel it's okay to be me. I have permission to be me, and I am me on the stage. I always have been, but there's even more of me now, if that makes sense. It's very much, I have a right to be there. I'm okay to be there, and I'm allowed to enjoy it. I'm allowed to really let people see me because I'm not carrying that guilt anymore. And the feedback from that is, as we know, when we are our authentic selves, people like that and they can connect to that. And I feel like I'm making even more deeper connections now because I'm happy with me and I'm not carrying that guilt anymore.
Yeah, this is such a huge thing, because when we have hidden grief, hidden pain, hidden guilt just lying there underneath the surface, it's the one controlling us with the marionette strings, right? It's pulling the strings and we don't even know that that's going on. And we feel triggered by certain things, upset, angry, whatever it is. And we don't actually know why that is. We often blame the situation, or we blame the other person. And yet it's something living dormant inside us. It hasn't been acknowledged. And I love how you're using that word. It needed to be acknowledged, because that's such a big piece of this.
Yes.
And so yeah, when we went to discuss, like, okay, are we going to do this event together? And there was like, oh, there was your resistance, and then we realized there was
Yes.
a lot to process, and
Mm.
and basically from there, it was allowing the emotions to come up, allowing
Yeah.
you to connect with those emotions. And Adrianne does this work herself, and she's amazing at this. And so it was just a matter of sitting with them and feeling them and letting them come up, and various different insights and things came in along with that. But do
Mm.
you remember, I mean, it was 6 weeks ago and we do a lot of this work, but do you remember that feeling of the guilt leaving you, or do you just notice the difference before and after?
Um, I mean, I did feel a physical shift. I mean, there was a lot of pain that came up, and I don't know if I'd actually felt the guilt leaving me. I think only now, as I've processed it and time has gone on a bit, that I realise it was the guilt.
Mm,
But it really is now about the before and after for me.
mm,
Um, it was very painful, as you know, you were present when I was healing and processing that pain, and it was very, very painful. And you know, it's the relief afterwards was more of what I felt rather than the actual guilt shifting. And
awesome.
I've just realised something actually. So I'm away this weekend for work, and normally I would be getting really stressed about printing off the train journeys, and because when I get to the other end in a foreign country, I've got to get 2 trains. Um, I didn't do that this time, and I felt a little bit unsettled all week, thinking, I wonder why. It's not like me to not prepare the train journeys and have it all printed off. Yesterday, I reached out to someone. All I had was a name and a location, and I found her on LinkedIn with her phone number. And I reached out to her, and she called me straight back. And we're going to travel together when we get to the other side. And I just thought I would never have reached out in the past. That was
Mm,
something I would never have done, because I would have thought, oh, I don't want to be a pain. She'll be fine traveling. She won't want me to travel with her. And I just reached out to her and just said, hi, this is Adrianne. I believe we're on the same flight. Would you like to travel on together? She rang me straight back and said, yeah, actually, we're going for lunch and we're going for a tour. Would you like to join us? Yes, thank you. I'd love to. You know, I think it's really shifted me on levels I haven't even really realized yet, because I
mm,
would never have reached out. I would have just struggled on my own. And I
mm.
really felt comfortable. I didn't even think about it. I just reached out, and I would never have done that before. And I think this is another byproduct of this massive healing that I've gone through.
Wow, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Mm.
Oh, cool. And yeah, and so I don't know whether you're watching this and whether you've already heard about my story of the miscarriage, but mine was quite different than Adrianne's. Um, Mine was towards the end of July, so we're in October, at the beginning of October now. And I went for my 12-week scan, and that's when I found out that the baby had died 2 weeks prior to that. And there was shock, and there was just sobbing, and there was all of these kind of things. And there were the asking the questions of why me, and why this, and why didn't I know, and why didn't I miscarry earlier, and all of those kind of things. And I just allowed all of it to come up. And Phil was there with me, which I feel so blessed for. I
Mm.
think there are so many women who just work in different spaces, even, or maybe they didn't have a partner, or all of that kind of stuff. So I'm really incredibly blessed for his support as well. And we just kind of knuckled down for a week, and we stayed with a friend as well. And because I just wanted to be away from home, I didn't want to be in a familiar place, because that felt too soon, right? Like, oh my God, I don't want things to be normal when they're not normal. And I just went through everything, and just would randomly burst into tears. And when 2 days later, after we found out that we'd lost the baby, I physically lost her, and I just sat in the bath, and Phil was with me, and we were just like collecting her in a little jar, and so that we could have a ceremony later on. And it was just a very, very different situation, because I had been doing this work for, a decade or more. And this is why I wanted to run this summit, is because I'm like, women need to know about this, not just women. Everybody needs to know about this, because when we prepare for something, yes, it's going to be shocking. Yes, it's going to be painful. We can move through that so quickly. And because I did that, and because I was very present with my emotions around losing, we called her Soraya, our baby Soraya, I was present around all of those emotions, but I was also present around everything else that was coming up, anything else that I was feeling. I was like, okay, what is this? I want to pay attention to it. Because when I was 19 and I lost my dad, I did the opposite. I like buried it. I drank alcohol, I exercised incessantly. I did all of the things to just run away from those emotions and I just locked myself down emotionally. And so I needed this work so much to break through the kind of the iron walls that I'd created around my heart and around my emotions. And so it was really hard for me initially doing this work. I always think that I'm my worst client. And I'm glad I didn't have to coach me, although I kind of do. And so I didn't want this to be like that. I wanted this to be completely different. And so I was just like, any emotion, I'm like, yep, cool, bring it on. I'm going to sit and I'm going to cry. I'm going to feel. And I just took that time that I needed and was really aware of anything that was coming up. And yeah, I didn't have any guilt, which I was surprised about, because I was actually thinking maybe a month before the miscarriage happened, when I was pregnant, I was thinking, imagine if I had a miscarriage, I think I'd feel really guilty that I'd done something wrong. And I didn't feel that. And I was really grateful that I didn't feel that. But I can imagine that some women do. And I want to encourage you, if you are feeling it, one, acknowledge that you're feeling it and then let it go, because it's not your fault. But yeah, that was a huge thing. And that's why I wanted to run this summit, is to show that there are ways that you can not only move through the pain, but you can also connect to the light. I call it the light, or something that is going to actually change your life for the better. And I think a lot of people talk about grief as a bad thing. And for me, it wasn't a bad thing. It was a deeply sad thing, and it cracked me open like so much. However, it was really powerful for moving me forward and for connecting me to healing that I needed. And there was stuff around losing my dad that came up. It was like when my dad died, a piece of me died with him, because I was like, what's the point? You know, he kind of felt like my North Star, right? And then I'm like, if he's gone, then what's the point? And why would any other man love me? And there were all these different things that came up with that. And so there was a piece of that I hadn't healed yet. And it's like I needed this depth of grief to get to that place. And so I'm really grateful for so many things that came to me from losing our baby. And I think it can be really awkward talking about grief in the way that you can be grateful for losing somebody that you love, and for something that you would never wish on anyone else, and for something that you don't want to ever happen again. It seems like a strange thing to say, oh, I'm grateful for that experience. It almost seems like, oh, I'm slapping that person in the face who died. But I think the oxymoron of that, the kind of I don't know, the contrast, perhaps, they do go together.
Yeah, very, very powerful. Very powerful.
Yeah. And so I wanted to share that if you are grieving, and if you're feeling changes that are coming through you that are not all painful, that are really positive and empowering, don't feel guilty about that. Or if you do, feel it and move through it, which we're going to do a little bit of that soon. But there are so many emotions that come up when something traumatic happens, when we're grieving. And so it's not talked about enough, the way we change after grief. And I've heard a lot of people say, grief changes you. And when I've heard that, to my ears, what they were saying was, it changes you and you're never going to be as good afterwards. You're always going to be a little bit messed up. My experience is that it changes you for the better. You lose a part of yourself, you lose a person, and that is deeply sad, and no one's denying that. However, the person that you can claim in that space has the potential to be really powerful and really amazing and really beautiful. And this is really what I wanted to share, and why I wanted to run this. And So I'd like to do some of this with everyone here on the recording as well. And I'm not going to put anyone on the spot. I'm just going to get you to go through your own process. And so if you have had a miscarriage, if you have had some kind of grief, then I'm just going to invite you to connect with an emotion around that. And so if this feels good to you, then if this feels safe to you, then do that. If it doesn't, choose an emotion that feels that is about something that you feel safer about. Like maybe you're annoyed at somebody, like maybe somebody cut you off when you were driving today and that really annoyed you and you got really angry. Choose something like that. Otherwise, we can actually work on the grief, and just know that when you actually move the painful emotions out of the way, you're able to connect with a deeper love. And working with a client the other day on a similar thing, she had lost a baby. She wasn't able to connect to her baby and think of him because it was too painful. Whereas now, when we can actually release the guilt, the pain, the shame, all of those things, she can now connect to his spirit. She can now connect to his soul and honor him as part of the family. And if you've ever looked into family constellations, they're part of our family system. It's just that Soraya, she's in a different form, but she's part of the family. And so we acknowledge her. Okay. So we're going to set the space. I'm going to invite you, if it feels safe to you, to close your eyes. And I'm just going to set an intention that the space that we are in, this energetic space that we have created with all of us here, this includes you if you are on the recording, this is a safe space. This is a space filled with love. This is only open to loving energies and to healing and to allowing the release of pain, of grief, of emotions that are too much, that we are ready to release. Any darker energies are going to leave the space. And so we set our intentions that we're very safe. If you see yourself surrounded with a beautiful light, maybe baby pink light or a white light, a blue light, whatever feels good to you. Okay, we're just going to relax our bellies. So often we hold tension in our bellies. So just really allow your belly to relax. No one's going to see your belly. Breathing into it. Allowing your belly to be full like a beautiful belly dancer. And just see if you can relax your jaw, your forehead, and let your feet settle nicely on the floor. And I want you now just to think of that event, whether it's something as seemingly simple as somebody cutting you off in traffic or speaking to you rudely, or if you're going to connect to the event of losing your child, losing your beautiful baby. And when you think of that event, I want you to allow whatever emotion is there to be there. So if the feeling is annoyed, notice where you feel annoyed in your body. Sometimes it's an energy around us as well, pressing on us. But notice how it's impacting your body. And this whole time, just if you can stay connected with your breathing, not trying to change it, just noticing it, being aware of it. Now, whatever that feeling is, whether it's sadness, grief, guilt, anger, see if you can not judge what you're feeling and just let it be there. It can be helpful to notice how intense it is, from 0 being it's not there, to 10 being its maximum level of intensity. Sometimes I use a color scale of clear or white all the way up to bright red or black. It's important not to try and make the feeling go away. This process is often called the acceptance process. So we're accepting ourselves as we are right now, feeling this emotion. Just breathing into it and letting it be there. Sometimes when you really feel into it, when you drop into that emotion, it can get more intense. That's okay. Just means you're connecting more deeply. So let's say you notice it in your chest. Really just paying attention to the physical feeling that the emotional feeling is creating in your chest. It's like the two are one. And if your mind starts to distract you, all it's trying to do is protect you and keep you safe. If you're not used to feeling into your emotions, your mind can get a bit scared and freak out because it's not used to it. So just in a loving voice, just saying to your mind, thank you for trying to keep me safe. Please help me focus on this part of my body, whether it's your elbow, your chest, your foot, and this emotion, so that I can honor myself, accept myself, and allow it to release. Now, if you're on the call now, or if you're watching this later on and you feel that you get a bit scared from an emotion, the way to always make sure that you're coming back to safety is you jump up, you shake your body and you wipe it off you, and you can make noises and you can jump up and down and you breathe, and then you just bring in lots of light, which we'll be doing soon anyway, into your body, and you fill your body with light. And the next time you do this, you ask for guidance from somebody who can help you. And also know that nothing will come up you're not ready for, but that doesn't mean you have to deal with it on your own. So just noticing that part of your body and that emotion, how does it feel now? Is it softer? Is it lighter? Is it a little bit less than what it was? See if just from giving it a gentle attention, whether it slowly starts to diminish a little more. And what often happens is that when that emotion moves through, say for example it was anger, there'll be another emotion underneath it. And so once that has moved through, you may find, like anger, there might be guilt underneath it. And so then you're just doing the same thing, allowing that emotion to come up, allowing yourself to find it in your body. It might be in the same place. Feeling the physical feeling, feeling the emotion, breathing, accepting, and allowing it to be there. This emotion that is coming up is not your truth. It doesn't mean if you're feeling guilty that you are a guilty person and you should hold on to that. It just means this is what you're feeling right now. This is what you're feeling right now. And it's okay to sit with it so you can move through it. Okay, so if you're watching this later, you can pause the video at any time. And then you can allow yourself to just move through. Okay, and so I just want you to gradually allow yourself to come into the room, arrive in your body, and just notice how you're feeling now. And again, I'm not going to put anyone on the spot, so just notice how you're feeling in your body and what has changed. And so I wanted to give you a very small taster of how you can move through your own emotions. Other things come up. There are lots of tricks and tools that come into this. Also, a lot of insights and intuition that you'll find comes in. This is an incredibly powerful way to clear a pathway to your own internal guidance. Because when we're afraid of an answer that's going to come up, or we convince ourselves we don't know what an answer is, we can have all these emotions in the way of it. And so when we can feel those emotions and just move through the layers of them, we create this beautiful, direct connection to our intuition, and we know the next thing to do. So whether that's ask for help, whether that's go for a walk, have a bath, go shopping, no matter what it is, then we can feel, however you feel your guidance and you know that it's right, that's such a good, powerful way to allow you to understand and to read your intuition. So Adrianne, how was that for you? Did you decide to move through something?
I did. My husband's really annoying me because he snores really badly, and this morning he snored terribly last night. So I just moved through my annoyance and irritation with him, and then I got to a really beautiful feeling of peace and just gratitude, because he does so many fabulous things for me and for the family. So yeah, that was really good. Thank you.
I love that so much. It's so good. And it's another really great example of how we don't have to have a massive trauma to do this work. Like that was an annoyance, like a low level annoyance. Oh, how annoying.
Yeah.
And yet because you've moved through that, you've created a deeper connection to him.
Yeah.
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 And
Just don't need to be carrying that.
You don't need to be carrying that. Yeah. And you already have a really beautiful relationship with your husband. And yet it can keep getting better all the time.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. So I guess the only other things that I would like to say today are, if you have suffered grief of some kind, including miscarriage, of course, then my heart goes out to you, because it's incredibly painful. And also you can move through that pain, and you can get to know yourself better because of it, and you can get to love yourself better because of it, and you can open yourself up to really amazing experiences and really amazing things that can come in. And yeah, don't stay in that pain. It doesn't actually connect you more deeply to the one that you've lost. It actually keeps you further away from them. So yeah, I would encourage you, if you really want to connect to those that you've lost, move through the pain that you're feeling, because that is the block between you and them. Adrianne, is there anything else that you wanted to add?
No, I love that. I love that the pain is actually keeping you away from them. I absolutely love that, and it's so true. I think that's such a powerful note to really, hopefully people who are watching this will take that on board.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And if you're watching this, so we're in October now, so a month from now, so to the 5th, yeah, until the 5th of November, I'm offering anyone who watches this, or limited to 5 people. If you're watching this, then I have a gift for you, which is a complimentary 60-minute session with me. If you would like to know more about how to move through this work and you just feel like you need some extra support and some extra help, then I would love to gift that to you. So just drop me an email. It's penny@pennybeal.com, and I'll also put that below this video. And so, yeah, you're more than welcome to take me up on that. Awesome. Okay. Thank you so much for watching, and feel free to share this video with anyone that you feel needs it. And Adrianne, thank you so much for being here. It's awesome. It's so special having you here.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing with us as well, because it's really, really powerful. And I hope lots of, well, 5 people take you up on your kind offer.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody.